Morning guys, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and I wanted to show you guys a quick mod, if you will, this morning, or an easy way, if you prefer, to make a buck saw and give yourself a couple of extra components for another tool in a longer term or base camp scenario. I have a hunter's axe here, and this is the head for a hunter's axe with about a 15-inch handle on it. I got this head from SA Wetterlings when I was in Sweden the last time. And Marcus from SA Wetterlings sent me 4 axe handles recently for a project I wanted to work on. So I took one of those handles and I hung it in this head. And it's still drying here. The wedge is still drying in the head, so I haven't cut it off yet. So you've got a little extra length there. But that shows you what the axe handle looks like in its raw state before there's a head hung on that axe. Now, I took the other 2 axe handles and I used them to make a buck saw. And you don't have to modify the handles whatsoever in order to make this buck saw. So if you have this buck saw in your base camp and it's made from the exact same axe handles that your axe uses to begin with, then you're just giving yourself a couple spare axe handles at camp and a usable tool at the same time. So I'm going to walk you through real quick how I made this, and then we're going to demonstrate it real fast. This one is a little fancier than something you'd make on the fly. But again, it may be something that you make and take with you because you really only need to make the one component. In this case, I have used a couple steel pins, and I've also cut this windlass bar. But you could use sticks for all 3 of those locations if you needed to on the fly, and only make the crossbar ahead of time. And you really could make the crossbar probably on the fly as well, but it's going to be much more stable, much more secure, and well fitted if you do it ahead of time. So let's talk through this real fast. Stay with me. All right, so let's take this saw apart to begin with here by loosening the windlass. And this is all set up to be kind of temporary. Everything comes undone very quick and easy on this. This is a trucker's hitch style knot or a rope tackle with a slippery half hitch, if you want to get technical about it. And I just used the existing axe handle holes to attach my windlass. So again, there's no modification there. Now the other thing about an axe handle is that an axe handle comes already split at the bottom. So it gives you a ready place for that blade to slide into already from the manufacturer. The trickiest part of all of this really is this crossbar. And this crossbar is just made out of a piece of scrap 1x3 that I had in my shop. And what I did with this was I just made a T-bone out of this basically that locks into place on the handle. So it matches the handle curvature as far as the profile goes. And all I did was I took the handle and I drew this profile on the outside, and then I removed material slowly to make sure that it fit well where I wanted it to fit on the saw itself, just like that. And it's reversible, it'll go on either way, all right? So that's the really simple part of putting this together. And then you could use it with the handles out this direction or the handles in this direction. I think it looks better with the handles in this direction. I cut myself 2 1/4-inch steel pins. That could be nails. That could be pieces of green wood if you needed it. And then I just had another piece of scrap wood that I cut into a windlass device. And again, this could be something from the landscape. And then I have a piece of paracord here. That's basically one of my utility cords that we talk about in other videos. That's about 6 feet long with a bow line in one end and a stop knot in the other, which is not tied in this line. There we go, and a stop knot in the other end. All right, so that's the components that we need. So now we have 2 extra handles for our axe if something happens that we were to break one. The hardest thing to recreate would be the axe handle in a woodland environment. If you're carrying one that's a replacement, you don't have to worry about that. All you have to do is recreate the wedge at that point, and you're ready to rock and roll. So now, putting this thing together, pretty simple. Everything is friction held, and I'm going to give you a demo on how this works so you know how stable it is when we're done. So remember that these go with the eye and the curvature going this direction. All I generally do is I slide the blade into the slot and I drop a pin in there, just like that. I drop the other side into the slot, move it out, and this distance here is what gives you the length of this crossbar, okay? Then I just drop my crossbar in just like this, figure out about what height I want it, kind of even things up a little bit, just like this, and then I'm going to attach the windlass. I'm going to give you a little bit of a close-up on how I did this windlass, but it's no different than the rapid deployment ridgeline that we use here at the Pathfinder School in every class. That's why we use a lot of transferable things so that you can use them for lots of different applications. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to feed this line, and that's the reason I had the stop knot taken out of this, was just to make it easier to get through the hole. Although the stop knot will go through the hole, it's not that big of a deal. But the stop knot's going to keep you from pulling this through your slippery half hitch in the end. So feed both of these through your hole just like this, and then pull everything to where your loop is pretty close to the other end, and put this rope through the loop just like this. That gives you that rope tackle, just like you would have on a tree, just like that. And you don't need to pull it real tight, just kind of pull it so it's got tension on both sides, and then just pinch it off and put your slippery half hitch in there, no different than you do on that rapid deployment ridgeline. And that makes it temporary so that if I want to take this off really quick and reuse this cordage for something else, I can do that. Now that I've got some tension on this, I'm going to go ahead and put my windlass in, and I'm going to turn it a few times just to get a little bit further tension on everything before I make any final adjustments. I don't need a ton of tension, I just need enough. All right, so now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to adjust my pins, make sure that my saw blade is to the top of that kerf that's cut in the handle on both sides. I'm going to stand the saw up and be sure that I'm even on the handles here and that everything is level before I really crank down on this thing. I want to make sure that this distance is the same all the way across and this is nice and level. And now I can begin to tighten this down really, really tight. And what's happening is now I'm pulling here and here, pushing this out, and I'm pivoting on this point, but this is not going to slide up and down because that joint right there is pretty solid. Now, if you banged on the thing, you could probably knock it off of there. But once you get it tight, it's going to take an awful lot to make that happen. You're going to want to slide this windlass device so that it locks down here. It doesn't need to lock too far down. It just needs to be just a little bit below to make sure it catches. And then just crank that dude up until you're confident in the amount of tension you've got. It's going to take a lot to break this paracord, so you can really put a lot of tension on that. And there's my security half hitch right there. And now this thing is really, really stable side to side. And I have an absolutely workable bucksaw that even looks really nice. And I'm going to take this out now, and we're going to discuss utilizing this bucksaw just to demo it and show you how well it cuts wood. Okay, if you have a bucking horse like this silky saw bucking horse, then you've got these uprights that can deflect the blade. And you can actually come in here right next to those uprights, place your hand on the stock. Obviously you want the free falling side, gravity to open the kerf as you go, and you can go ahead and you can begin your kerf. Okay? If you don't have these guards, then the best option is to put your hand through the blade to start the kerf so that if it jumps up and down or jumps side to side, it doesn't jump into your hand. And then once you get to the point where you've got the kerf started and the blade is buried in the kerf to where it's not going to come out, then you can move back to that normal position again and continue your work. There we go. Okay. So you can see that thing is plenty stable. They do a lot of work. It doesn't move side to side. It doesn't move this way. It doesn't move this way. That thing is rock solid. All right, guys, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School. I appreciate you guys joining me today for a quick video tutorial on how to make a buck saw from 2 axe handles. I appreciate your views and I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, all our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.